Relationships in general have always been difficult for me for many different reasons. But as it relates directly to depression and anxiety is, in one word, control.
I'm very all or nothing, very black and white. I love or I hate. It's really difficult for me to find the gray area, to find the middle. It puts me in really awful situations in relationships and friendships because I'm all or nothing.
When I was younger, I think I wouldn't think through certain things. When I was having arguments or disagreements with someone, I would start raising my voice, or I would feel things very strongly. And I think I would either walk away or I would make some rash decisions.
In my child mind, there was something about me that attracted, like, what I would say, like, weirdness, that brought weird things out of people. That's how I felt it as a kid. So I felt enormous shame that, like, something in me caused other people to act strange around me. That's how I interpreted it. And it made me not want to be close to people.
I mean, it is case by case. With my mental health, some people just outright dismissed it, thought of it as me saying it's an excuse. This is why this is happening. Some people have become more compassionate, more loving.
And I have, had friends that I thought that were my friends, and even coming out and open in public, sharing what I had, I've lost some. In a sense where the ones that I thought that I could call, family in that friend sense would label me as, schizo, or as a way of an insulting slur to my mental health.
If I'm friends with somebody that I like, I love them and I do everything for them, and I give them the clothes off my back, I give them the money I don't have. This is like a very common thing with a lot of people with BPD. It's like this favorite person syndrome, it's, you find somebody and they just become your obsession. Not in, like, it doesn't need to even be in a romantic way. It's just like you want to do anything and everything for them because you love them as a person. And it really stems from fear of abandonment.
Anxiety, depression demands that you know what's going to happen next. Otherwise, your anxiety elevates. And as your anxiety elevates, your depression then elevates. Well, for me. And so needing that control has absolutely destroyed relationships, friendships. When I didn't understand this thing, certainly intimate relationships, especially in my youth, I didn't understand any of what I was facing.
So the last relationship that I was in was from 2015 to late 2019. So it was basically about 5 years. I constantly questioned his intentions and his dedication, and I think that probably put a strain on the relationship. But because of the things that I'd gone through as a child, I was second guessing and unsure. I needed that reassurance that we were still okay. So it's not bad for me to need that. I just need to do it in a way that's healthier and in a way that's not constant. I learned through the breakup that it gave me that opportunity to see that I did have the capacity to be loved, because I always thought that my mental illness or my mental health condition would hold me back or prevent me from being with someone who could see me. And so I feel like, okay, someone could love me and honestly love me and be there for me.
I have dated in the past, especially when it came before I had my diagnosis. It was very toxic in that aspect of what I was doing. And so me growing up and learning from, my past mistakes, my ways of how I treated others, especially my significant other at the time, it was very cringe to remember, but it was a learning lesson to understand, like, hey, you can work with this. You can work, like, as long as you're vulnerable and open with that kind of setting, you'll be fine. I've had it to where I opened up one time and I was hurt. It's hard to try to find the line between, if I'm talking to a person, should I tell them my diagnosis at that time?
Like when I was doing dating apps and stuff, I definitely disclosed my MS right off the bat, because I didn't want to show up to a date and people expecting something and not realizing that I'm disabled and that I'm living this life. I feel like I have to be transparent with that. Not so much the depression. I mean, it's not that I don't disclose that to people, but I don't feel like that one is as necessary right off the bat.
A lot of people see me for the way that I love, which is just like so pure. It's so honest. It's so fucking 100% in, like no toes dipped. Like I am underwater with and I'm not even using a mask. Like I am breathing the fucking water, That's the way that I love. And it's made a lot of people think like you're the one that got away, or blah 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 blah, or all that, when in reality it's just like they don't even see through why I love like that. It's based out of fear of being left, because all the times that my mom would leave, not come back for a week, I'm just afraid that they're gonna leave, and I know that they're gonna leave, so I have to love them as much as they can.
My wife is patient. Like, bottom line up front, I know who I am, and she knows who I am, and she understands what I need. And I understand what I need to give to the relationship. It was very important to me to find someone that understood what I was facing, and that understood that this wasn't a one and done. This was a journey, and it was going to be a lifelong commitment to battling with this.
I like to be with someone who has struggled through something, who has overcome something, because again, there's a cost to resilience, but I also think that with my own personal experience, I've been able to overcome so much, and having that strength is something that I need in a partner, where they don't run at the first sign of trouble.
So yeah, Jonathan, it's been a learning curve for him. He has seen me on dark days, light days. He's seen me all over the place. So he's weathered the storm with me. I can get really irritable, like, just leave me alone. I feel guilty because I am so irritable, and he's doing something out of love to help me, and I'm just snapping at him like, leave me the fuck alone. As he's seen more and more of this, he's kind of been able to roll with the punches. I am trying so hard to better my reactions. It always is taken out on the person that is closest to me, and I hate that.
Several years ago, could not go to bed if there were dishes in the sink. Erica and our relationship and the work that I've done to aid me in being the best that I can be despite the anxiety, depression, have allowed me to go to sleep with dishes in the sink. And that sounds, to anyone listening to this, that sounds so simple. But if you start stacking up things like that in a relationship, it can absolutely destroy a relationship, because you think about bigger aspects of a relationship, and you think about that control mentality, and you think about that this must get done because this is the way that it is. Not being able to allow for space for things to go wrong.
It's difficult with my mom and my dad. I was grateful that when I was 15 or 16, he was the one that got me to the psychologist. That gave me that diagnosis of major depressive disorder. But when he flat out asked me if I had thought about suicide before, I desperately replied, yes. He said, no, you haven't. I'm like, what?
My mom and I we're very similar. Our brains work to a T the same, if that makes sense. The way she saw herself is the way I saw myself. So, and she knew that since I was a kid, you know, like I popped out and she looked at me and was like, oh no. And she knew that I needed help. And so my mom wanted to give me the help that nobody gave her. And of course, you know, my parents hate each other. So it's like anything my mom believed was true, my dad believed was false, and vice versa.
My dad, biological father, lived with us for a little bit, but he left when I was around 6 years old. He didn't want my mom to work, and so my mom ended up on welfare and food stamps and just not having food in the refrigerator. So she was very, very depressed. There would be days where she would just spend the weekend sleeping all day. She was really, really depressed. And so it was me and my sister, you know, just doing whatever, watching TV. And so thanks to my grandmother, her mother, she was the person who was able to be there for me when my mother wasn't. You know, she was like my mother. She took care of us, and she was actually the only person that made me feel okay with my depression. I remember one time I was crying, and she was the one that told me that it was okay to cry, that it wasn't a sign of weakness.
I now understand my mother also was in survival mode. Even as a young kid, I thought I had more resources than my mom. And even as a young kid, like, and again, this was my mother, I don't say this in judgment, but like, I did a skate-a-thon when I was little, where I skated for 12 hours, and I asked, you know, I went up and down the street and got the neighbors, you know, like, we'll give you like a quarter for every hour you skate. So I did this thing when I was a kid, and then gave all the cash to my mother, who wrote a check. And later I found out the check was never mailed in. She just kept the cash, and then it never mailed in the money or never mailed in the like forms and just stuff like that. Like, she was in a bad way herself, but as a kid, I remember just being crushed, and like I didn't see her as somebody I could really trust, or that had a lot of resources herself. I saw her as having a lot of strain and stress, and like, I didn't want to add to that or add on to that as a kid. When I did disclose what happened, you know, her initial response was not to believe me. Like, you know, she's like, if, you know, I would have known if something happened, or even if something happened, what are you telling me now for? And it was just dismissive, and it created more of a distance between us.
For some in my family, I just want them to leave me alone and understand that I have to do what I have to do to protect my own family now. And part of that is protecting them from the toxicity and mental instability of others. And that's tough. That is very tough. But that is, the one thing I wish that they would see is that it's all done out of love. It's all done because I'm stopping a cycle.
When I was told that I have schizophrenia, when I was told that I have major depression and anxiety, I wish I could say everything became a 180 at that time, you know? But it didn't. It was a lot of learning. It was relief for all of us to at least know that, hey, this is what I have. But then, like, as we started progressing, we were like, okay, well, now what? What we got to do? We got to get educated. We got to learn. We became more vulnerable to one another about our mental state, that our other outside source family members became open about theirs and asking questions and wanting to get help as well. So that's the positive note about, being aware of what we've been through on this journey, that more people are coming to us and seeking guidance for mental health help. And it's like, we're not experts. We're just people living with our experiences of mental health.
Like 95% of my experiences with ovarian cancer have been positive in terms of the way people respond to me and react to me and support me. And I would say it was probably the converse with post-traumatic stress. It was the rare exception that wasn't freaked out or afraid or threatened. The mental health system, the way it works is like, only a specialist can talk about this stuff. Only a specialist can treat this stuff. But we know with cancer, no one's who supports me is trying to be an oncologist. They're just being somebody that loves me. And so that's helpful. So you don't have to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist to love somebody well and care about somebody. But I don't think we know that yet as a culture.
People like us, we're such a fucking open book, but it just takes somebody to ask. And sometimes it's really rare to find somebody that's willing to ask with intent to want to listen,
Genuinely asking, I feel like you're okay, or is there anything I can do to help you? Those kind of basic questions can go a long way. Even if that individual's not reciprocating instantly, at least they have that in the back of the mind, I'm feeling like I'm being taken care of, even though I'm going through the ringer right now.
Just listen. It's as simple as that. The one person, when I was expressing having suicidal thoughts, she just listened to me, listened to what I said, not trying to diminish what was going on, not trying to offer up platitudes like, oh, this is no big deal, this too shall pass. Just listen.
Something that really helps is there's a lot of incredible and great friends that I've met at meetings, specifically just some really important trans women in my life that I've met from AA, and I've met from sobriety. And one of my closest friends, she's a trans woman who's sober. She also has borderline personality disorder, and hers manifests in a different way than mine does. But there is such a level of understanding in that.
I have some of the most incredible friends, some of the most selfless individuals, and they seem to do anything that could better my days, could better anything, and I am so lucky. It's not like everybody has that kind of support system.
My dad implemented a technique where he'll ask me a scale from 1 to 5. And that scale is 5 being, I'm feeling fantastic, I'm high on life, everything's peachy, to 4 being, it's still good. And then 3 is like neutral, I'm doing good, this is how it is. 2 is more of like, okay, I'm kind of down, need some support a little bit. I'm not feeling too good. And then 1 is, do we need to start seeking professional treatment, such as, maybe going to a hospital, or maybe start checking in with some new medications and possibilities. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was going through an episode of depression where I was in my room majority of the time, not talking, and, my parents would check up on me. As every day asking, checking as like, how are you doing? And I'll say, I'm still a 2. They're like, okay, we're here. If you need anything, let's say something. If you want to talk, But having that kind of scale helped me become more vulnerable and aware, and also intuitive, to let them know exactly how I'm feeling, to let them know as well that they can trust me in that number scale. It was supposed to be meant for me. It's now meant for everybody inside the family now. And so we're able to use that kind of communication strat that my dad created to help us navigate how we're doing mentally in life.